Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. My name is Chris Legaspi. I'm a professional artist, author, and anime instructor. And today I wanted to do a quick case study, a critique of a drawing that a student sent me. And in this video, I just want to quickly go over first what I see, particularly in the drawing, and then I'll talk about some of the things that I see in the reference, how we can observe the model to get the clues that we need to draw effectively. And then at the end of this video, I'll show you some of the things that I would have done to better and more accurately and more impactfully translate this drawing. So make sure to watch till the end. So thank you for being here. I appreciate you. I'm going to begin by going over the drawing here, going over the reference. First, I just want to say what this artist did well. So one of the things I asked the student was to work on their torsos, and he's a pretty advanced student, so he was able to draw very well. And I just wanted to talk about some of the things that could be done to refine the torso here. And first of all, the line work is good. The positions are pretty good. The limbs read well. Everything reads well. So overall, it's a very good drawing. It just needs some refinement to make it even better. So that's what we'll do here. Let's look at the reference first. So the number one thing I look at is for the position, the movement, or the relationship between the form, and overall the shapes, the lighting, and basically what we have, what the model is giving us, what the lighting is giving us. So basically everything we need to draw this correctly in a realistic way. So the number one thing that I see and that we note and that our artist did here is the movement. So the overall relationship from the shoulder to the hip of the torso. And we're not going to cover the hands, arms, and limbs, just the torso for this. And then the shoulder line is here. So you can see already there's a bit of the shoulder line is already needs some work. And then the hip line is roughly here. So that's where the bone is, the iliac crest. So the genitals will be roughly in this zone. So the hip line looks pretty good, right? The angle. The pinching looks good. Now what I see and what I think was drawn well was the position of the rib cage. I think that was drawn really well. The position of the torso, the hips, it looks like this. The position of the hips is also drawn pretty well, but I would have exaggerated a bit more, which would create more drama and tension. It's actually really what's happening. These hips can be pushed up and out, and I'll explain that in a minute. Because if we look at the box, if we see the box here, see the box of the hip, that's what I see. See, notice the box of the hip here is a bit lower. So we'll see that in the analysis here. The center line is very good. Center line is very good. Position is good. And then overall, the description of the anatomy is pretty good. So there's a big exaggeration on the lat. That's okay. But to me, what needs to read is this bunch of form. The shoulder complex is extremely complicated. In my mind, it's the second most difficult thing to draw after the face. And there's a big bunch of big important forms here that need to be communicated. So that's more of what I see. We'll cover that. And this side as well. So what I see is an understanding that of some basic anatomy, but the organization, that's what I will cover in this video when we get to the shoulders. But really the main thing is the position, which is good. The shape is good, and the relationship from the head to the thing is good, which is in the drawing, and all the other stuff is kind of secondary. But that's what I see. The main thing I see angle, angle, position, how it is in 3D space. So this is a combination of the center line, the angle, and the corners, the underplane to the top. Same with the angle of the hips, and then the overall shape as well, which is good, but we can refine it based on the main thing, which is form and position. The form, number one. Number two is the position. What is the thing? And its position in 3D space. So these two things are what I'm going to focus on. Now that we went through the observation, now I'm going to do a tracing. I'm going to draw over using some tracing paper here, some vellum. So this is really cool. So this is the benefit of having an expert on your team, because this is exactly how I learned when I was first learning how to do realistic figure drawing. And I took it seriously. I went to experts to draw in the same room with them and to get feedback. So this is where it's at. So I'm just going to kind of go over what I see and how I would refine. So number one, we saw the angle. And the angle is important because it sets up the position, and it sets up the shoulders, it sets up the gesture. Because with this angle, if we have this angle correct, remember the bottom one was correct, if we have this angle correct, then we can better gauge the stretch, and we can better gauge the pinch, and better gauge the stretch, and then better gauge the shape, and then better design the forms. Now that I know that this angle is here, I know that these forms will be different because of the complexity of the shoulder. So there's a bunch of stuff happening here. It'll take forever to get through, but let's just quickly go through what I see here. So let's get the neck to read. So now this has to go back up now. Okay, so I'm not going to cover the head too much, but now that we have basically altered the position of the rib cage and the shoulder, we also have to reconsider the position of the head. Of course, it's one unit. This is not two things. They are two things, but we think of them as one unit. So let's get the gesture. So right away, we can feel that I like the exaggeration of the rib cage here, but it makes the upper body so wide it becomes very masculine. So we don't want to do that. In general, yes, there are women with wide shoulders, but in general, we do not want to do that. We want to, in general, make the hips wider than the shoulders for women, females. And then we get the pinch. So the pinch, he understands very well. So he did that well. Now let's talk about the hip. The hip box, like I mentioned, we could push it out. So basically, I'm going to take this center line. See, notice center line here. I'm going to do this. Watch. Whoop. I'm going to give her basically a little bit more junk in the trunk. Make the butt and hips a little bit bigger. Why? Because it's A, it's more accurate. And B, it's closer to us. So it doubles as both a more refined shape, a more accurate shape, a more naturalistic shape. It's the correct position. So construction-wise, form-wise, it's correct, more natural, more correct, more useful for us. And finally, it creates and heightens the sense of depth and realism because this thing is in front of us now. And now we can better adjust the leg. We're not going to talk about the leg, and then the foot is in the wrong direction, but that's okay. We're not going to talk about the foot. Okay, so now you see. I'll use a darker pencil here so you can see it better. You see now the hip actually is sitting on the foot. So that's a nice detail we can add later. or emphasize later if we want. But the main thing is the position. So now the hips read nicely. You see, center line was good. I'm going to lightly ghost in the rib cage so I have it for myself, so I know. There it is. So that's my little rib cage. Now let's organize the shoulder. This is hard. This is very advanced, and I cover this in my figure drawing program, my masterclass program. I have an 8-module, over 16-hour figure drawing program, and I covered this in detail in the advanced module. So this is stuff. So basically we want to organize these details like that. Scapula, secondary muscles, and then lat, and then we group them even though we know that there is a trapezius here that's overlapping. And don't worry if you don't know this stuff. The shoulder is very hard. And now we can better design this thing. The right shoulder, it's in space. And then this is probably, this shadow line is the top of, or near the top of that scapula bone. This is the inside of the scapula bone. It's quite long. And then the shadow mass into the thing. So it's a very quick organization, and I'll just quickly add the shadow shape to complement my organization, my design. It's really designing. I'm looking, I know what's underneath. I know what the model is giving me, the light is giving me. So I'm just designing a shape, a form, and now a shadow design to help sell and communicate what I want to communicate, which is the shoulder complex. And then now also the cast shadow, we want to design the cast shadow to reinforce the anatomy design, construction design I just did. We can bulge out the hips a little bit more. So there it is, my friends. That is basically it. That is the refinement. And then if you want to use the shadow shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the shadow shape and turn it into a boxy corner design. So I'm not going to copy. I'm going to reinforce the position of the hips by using the shadow shape, and I'm going to design it. I'm not copying the shadow shape. I'm just designing it. And then we got this other stuff over here. So that looks pretty good. Now let's quickly compare this tracing to the original drawing. So this is what we have. Notice the organization here. And we can see in the reference. And notice the organization. Notice the attention to design more than copying, right? I didn't copy this zone. I designed it based on my structural game plan, which is how I organized shoulder detail and anatomy and stuff. So there you go. So you see the difference here. And you see how it feels, right? This zone now feels like, kind of like a box. That's what we want. There's a box there, you see? Turning the corner. The neck would be here. And then the head is like this, right? So now we have a box turning the corner. And even if you don't know anatomy, right? When you see this corner, right, that's missing from here, you say, oh, the layperson will go, oh, I know, that's that bony thing in my back. I don't know what it's called, but I have seen it my entire life. There's a bony thing in the back. When you look at a realistic drawing and you see a kind of a obvious corner, you're basically communicating bone in a lot of ways. You're communicating bone or very hard muscle. So just by designing it in this way, I communicate bone. So even a layperson will go, a layperson, someone who doesn't know figure drawing or whatever, a normal person, non-artist will go, oh, okay, this is a picture of a back that has the same bony thing that I have. Therefore, it must be quote unquote real. You see? That's the game, my friend. That's how designing and organizing can create the illusion of realism. It's basically what realism is. It's optical tricks. Realism is just a bunch of optical illusions. So that's one way to do it, is by designing a shape and using the appropriate edge and organizing your details in a way that communicates whatever you want to communicate. And for me, that was bony upper shoulder, cast shadow. Now here, I'm going to punch in a little shape. Why am I doing that? Because what that is the relationship. That is a relationship between all this beautiful detail and muscle to the abdomen and to the hips. So I'm transitioning you from the head to the upper shoulders to the mid torso rib cage, now into the abdomen, and then see that little arrow? That's going to lead you down into the hips, which is exactly what we want. So there's nothing here. If we look at the reference, there's not much information there. Now, I could just copy it, but of course, that would be a terrible idea because I'd probably ruin it. All I need is this little hook, this little point, and then I can put a little bit of tone to soften it and keep pushing your eye down. Then I could suggest. So this is more suggestion. You see? So I'm just suggesting that you go down, and I'm suggesting that there's a thing here. And because I use a certain edge, I'm also designing with my edge, right? I don't make a sloppy tone. I make a conscious tone. And what tone am I making? I go like this. It's a little bit hard on one end, a little bit soft on the other. And you know what that tells the viewer? Oh, there's something like that. And that's what that is, my friends. That is your sacrospinalis. It's a erector spinae. It's a group of muscles that keeps your back erect, your body, upper body erect, up, straight. And then we can even cap this. Just suggest some tone. I'm going to sharpen my pencil. And notice here, designing the hips, designing the core shadow shape of the hips, not blindly copying, not blindly making a thing. Oh, I see a core shadow, I will copy core shadow. No, 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 no. I want you to feel the boxiness of the hip. So guess what? I purposely draw it more like a box. And of course, I also drew it, I constructed it, I laid it in at a pretty accurate position. So it's reinforcing the original drawing. So a lot of the work was done in the lay-in. So that's going back to what we did earlier, was position. So now I'm going to harden this cast shadow. And then, we can add shadow mask if you want, not really. This breast is a little bit tricky. She has large breasts. It's kind of making her, it can kind of make the proportional a little strange, but whatever. We just need to know that there's something in front of this ribcage form. So I can just put a little overlap there. Mask it in so you see the difference. And the moment I mask it in, now you have another beautiful layer of form, my friends. You see what just happened? Once we mask this in, and we can even reinforce the core shadow now because I have confidence that I'm not just blindly copying. Oh, I see a core shadow, I make core shadow. No, this is a consciously designed mass and form and design and shape. I don't just blindly copy. I'm going, okay, I want to communicate something, which is, I know, like a vertical tubular thing, and a corner, you see? So now we have corner, corner, corner. See, we created, first we had form here. Now, with all this stuff, we are doing this. You see? We're doing another corner, but we're going this way now, you see? So that's the beauty of of um, of knowing the form. So you got to have you got to have a little bit of knowledge of anatomy. So you got to hit the books. You got to hit the textbooks. Do your thing. Do whatever it takes to understand rib cage, pelvis, and abdomen, mid back in this case, and their relationship. And then the next layer is understanding more complex anatomy. So the shoulder is very complex. It takes a while to study. So understanding what's going on there, and then having some kind of purpose and intent. So in this case, our intent was to communicate a beautiful, twisty, kind of bendy, beautiful pose. So the intent, because we had great subject matter, the intent is fairly clear. We got to do our best to translate this gorgeous pose in this gorgeous position. So that was my intent. Gorgeous pose, gorgeous position, beautiful forms, naturalism, realism, accuracy. That was the intent. So I did my best to communicate that using fundamental design principles and just basic figure drawing, core figure drawing knowledge, skills, and stuff. So that's a good stopping point, my friends. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for this wonderful artist who did all this beautiful work. And yeah, this is exactly how I learned. I know many of you watching, you probably you may not live near an artistic center. You know, I was trained in Los Angeles, so it's a very big art center of the world, you know, especially in America. So I was fortunate, and many of you watching are outside of artistic centers. You may live in a remote area, and you may not have access to high-level training, but it is something that is invaluable. If you are serious about doing this stuff at a high level, either for personal reasons or for career, it is very, very important to get as much time as you can with an expert. And I mean, as much time as, you know, this young artist has me to review their work and give their feedback. So whatever you can do to get feedback from an expert that you trust, that knows what they're doing, that has experience, and the faster you'll get to where you go. Because that's exactly how I learned. That's exactly how I went from amateur artist to professional. You know, it wasn't magic. I didn't sit in my room and draw on the internet for an hour a day. You know, I went and spent time with experts and other high-level students in the same room over a period of 2.5, 3 years, to eventually get me to a point where I was ready to be a professional. And that's exactly what happened. So thank you, my friends. You know, go seek some help. I have a lot of free resources here. You can email me. I have resources available on my website and things, and it's on this channel as well. So thank you for watching. Have a good day, my friends, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.